Hello, everybody. I cannot believe it's February already. I hope that your word that you chose for the year is carrying you through January and now February, and that it becomes your center point for what you choose to put in your mouth. We are all about protein today. Protein, protein, protein. We're going to go into a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation to really talk to you about what is protein. Are we getting enough of it? How much do we need? And then really looking at 3 culinary techniques to improve your protein intake. So that's going to be super fun. And what I love about food is that when we're all in our kitchens, lean in close. When we're all in our kitchens, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. We are in a safe place. We are in a place where we can nourish ourselves with all the stuff that's going on out there. So join me in my kitchen, and I am hoping that you really enjoy this presentation. So I am going to go and turn on the PowerPoint, and here we go, presenter view. Wonderful. Okay. So I wanted to remind you, my name is Dr. Deb Kennedy. I am the president of the Food Coach Academy. We officially launched last year, the end of last year, and our students are absolutely loving it. You don't have to wait to be acting like a food coach. So we have people that start up and are already doing cooking classes and really enjoying it and making an improvement in the community members' lives, one tasty bite at a time. So if you're not sure if you want to do the Food Coach Academy, we have in the green box here, we have our free course. Then we have taste and flavor, if you want to just focus on taste and flavor. And then we have the full program. And if you want to schedule a food coaching session with me to kind of get a feel of what that's like, you just go to my website. You see the drdebkennedy.com/contact, and you just put in the message that you'd like to set up a food coaching session. So that's who I am. And my expertise is culinary medicine, as many of you may know, and the whole food is medicine movement. We're hoping with the new establishment that food is medicine is going to really take off. We don't know yet. There's been a lot of things that have been canceled, but we're really having our fingers crossed that food is medicine will have its time in the spotlight. So let's focus on protein. In this presentation, I'm going to define protein. I'm going to let you know how Americans are doing. I don't know what it is about protein, but I've been practicing for over 30 years, and this myth has not gone away. We're not getting enough protein. We need enough protein. I'm not. And people are really anxious about not getting enough protein when the data shows we're getting a lot of protein. And I'm going to try and unravel some of that so you can take a deep breath and relax into your eating. Then we're going to list what are the risks of eating too much animal protein in terms of both our health and planetary health, listing the benefits of adding more plant protein to our diets, and then describing the 3 culinary techniques to improve protein intake. So what is a protein? So you have 3 macronutrients. You have fats, you have sugars, and you have protein. And it's considered a macronutrient, and the building blocks that make up proteins are called amino acids. So just think of them as these building blocks that you put together, and depending on which of the ones you put together, you will either make something that's a hormone, or you can make something that's an enzyme, or some of your muscle. That really, your protein is the building blocks for all of that. It maintains muscle mass. It helps with your metabolism in terms of it increases satiety, so you feel full faster. And you get protein from both animal and plant sources. But here's where the tricky part comes in. Your body requires 20 building blocks, 20 amino acids, of which 9 of them are essential. And what that means is you cannot make these in your body, but you can make the other 11. Your body will just take all this stuff and create 11 amino acids, but the other 9 you have to get from your diet. So when we're talking about, do you get plant-based, do you get animal-based protein, we start to talk about, is it a complete protein? Meaning, does it have all of those 9 essential amino acids in it? or is it an incomplete protein? And we're going to get into that in a little bit. So your animal sources come from meat and fish, eggs and dairy, and your plant sources come from vegetables, nuts, seeds, lentils, legumes, tofu. And we can see here, that's your chickpeas, your black beans, your edamame for legumes. Your nuts and seeds are, these are just some examples of them, your chia, your hemp, your flax seeds, your almonds, walnuts, pecans, all of that. And then your soy products. A lot of times when people are replacing plant-based for their animal-based, they tend to go for tofu and tempeh, soy milk and miso, so a lot of the soy products. But you also have your nut butters, and your vegetables are also a provider of those amino acids. They provide protein. Your fruit don't provide protein, but grains, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds, they all provide protein. And when we look at the plant-based proteins, remember I said a complete protein? Your soy and your quinoa are complete proteins. And there's a list of some others like buckwheat and chia seeds, tempeh, amaranth. When we were talking about plant proteins versus animal proteins, I always have this discussion with kids. And I've probably said this before, but your protein source is either going to be healthy or unhealthy, depending on the company that it keeps. So I say to kids, if you hang out with the bullies in the playground versus your really good friends who have your back, one's going to be a healthy choice and the other one's not. So plant-based protein sources are your best friends, right? Because they come with phytonutrients, antioxidants, fiber, vitamins, minerals, along with the protein. But if we look at the animal-based protein sources, some of them come with saturated fat. In your full-fat dairy products like cheese, whole milk, in your poultry, so that is the skin on a chicken or the dark meat, as well as pork, beef, lamb. All those meats have saturated fat, which is the unhealthful fat, right? Those are the ones that turn solid at room temperature, and it can lead to heart disease. And when you look at some of the processed meats, you have added sodium as well. Now, they don't just have negative nutrients, those that don't provide health, like your fat and your sodium. You can see in this list that there's a lot of vitamins and minerals that meat provides, that poultry provides, fish and seafood. I want to let you see that the omega-3 fatty acids and the vitamin D is super important there in terms of anti-inflammatory effects. And dairies where we as Americans get is our number one source of getting calcium in the diet. And then we have the nutrients in eggs. We even have a phytonutrient lutein for our eye health. So what I say to individuals is 3% of Americans are vegans, 5% are vegetarian. You choose how far down the plant-based world you want to go. And you make that decision multiple times a day when you sit down for breakfast, snack, lunch, and dinner. Are you going to choose a plant-based or an animal-based? Most of us, over 50%, say we want to introduce more plant-based protein sources, but we don't actually want to get to the end of that road of becoming a vegan or a vegetarian, nor do you have to reap the benefits. So we'll go into that in a little bit in terms of how much. So when we look at the recommendation that the USDA puts out, they say that we need, and this just makes it difficult to understand, USDA, they call them ounce equivalents. Instead of saying ounces that most of us know, what is an ounce equivalent? What the heck is an ounce equivalent? So there's a list, it's on a website, it's My Plate, and you'll see here that a 1 ounce equivalent equals a tablespoon of nut butter, or 1 egg, or 1 ounce of meat or fish. And when we look at the amount of ounce equivalents that we need, you could see it varies depending on our age and our gender. As we age, We also see in this, they keep the amount of protein ounce equivalents the same in women over 55 and in men over 51. No, 51. Sorry, I can't see. It's way over there. Um, that the ounce equivalent either stays the same or goes down a bit. And we're going to talk about how it actually needs to go up and not down. So when you look at a label, you might ask yourself, why doesn't it have a percent daily value? Like you'll see, for instance, if it has a certain amount of calcium, it'll say 25% of your daily value. But you can't do that with protein because protein is based on your weight. It's actually based on your weight. So the amount of protein you need goes up depending on your weight. So we see some sources of how much is recommended. So the dietary allowance, usually it's zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, right? So that is what has been around for a very long time. We're now seeing research out on seniors saying that you actually need 1.0 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram. When you're looking at the amount of macronutrients, so anywhere from 10 to 35% of your total calories should be coming from protein sources, and that equals about 5.5 ounce equivalents per day. The DASH diet has you reaching more for lean meats and fish, nut seeds and legumes, as well as the heart association, because we will see that animal protein increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. So this is science, this is math. So just take a deep breath for a second and know that this is all you can find this information online and that you won't be the one really calculating the grams of protein you need a day. But as I said, if you're considered a senior, you have a 1 gram per kilogram amount of protein. So if you're a 140-pound individual, you first start by changing it into kilograms, which just means you divide it by 2.2. So if you're 140 pounds, that means you're 63.6, sorry, kilograms, it says pounds there, but 63.6 kilograms. And then you would times it by 0.8 if you're not a senior and get your allotment per day should be 51 grams of protein. Or if you are a senior, more like 62 grams a day. So when we look at the population and we say, how are Americans actually doing in terms of meeting their protein requirements? You can see here, if you look at total protein foods, we actually have no problem meeting our protein requirements, and we haven't for, I don't, unless you're in a situation where you're calorically deprived, you don't have enough calories, you can't get enough to eat, most of us are getting enough protein. And when we look at the amount of protein that we're getting that comes from meat, poultry, and eggs, you can see that, especially for men, they far exceed the amount of protein that they need. But when it comes to helpful sources of protein like seafood and legumes, they're far beneath, and women as well, far beneath the amount. And you'll see that in the bottom left graph, which could be a little hard to see. But those orange dots just say this is what you should this is what you're actually getting, and the blue lines are this is what you should be getting. You'll see there's a big difference. So bottom line, we get enough protein in our diet. We get most of it from meats and protein products that have saturated fat, and we're not getting enough from seafood, nuts, and seeds and legumes. And so that's going to be the focus of our culinary techniques and how to make that switch to a more plant-based diet. Now, we want to reduce animal protein because it's better for both the environment and it saves a bunch of money. It's a lot cheaper to decrease the amount of animal protein in your diet. And it also lowers your risk, I said, of heart disease, but also cancer, osteoporosis, and inflammation. Inflammation being a very common beginning step of chronic disease. So plants add more fiber, vitamins, and antioxidants. That is why we should reduce our animal protein. Now, Adding more plant protein is linked to lower blood pressure, cholesterol, and reduced heart disease risk. It's also associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes. It supports longevity, increases your lifespan, it lowers your risk of cancers, especially colorectal cancer. And because they're rich in fiber, it supports a healthy digestion and your microbiome. And it also helps to control hunger, which helps to support weight loss better than animal protein alone. So we've made the distinction between animal and plant protein, why animal is healthier for you, and the need to switch for better health. So these are the three culinary techniques that one can use to improve their protein intake. And when I say improve, I'm not saying get more of, I am saying get more of the plant based so that you get more phytonutrients, fiber, and everything that comes along with it. So let's focus on reducing. Now, this doesn't surprise anybody. And then the burgers that are provided to us when we go out to what's either called fast food or family restaurants are humongous. In the 1950s, they were a little less than 4 ounces. Now it is double or triple that size. Steak, the amount a serving size is anywhere from 2 to 3 ounces, but we're served 8 to 12 ounces, almost 6 times the amount that we actually need. Now, you could take that 12-ounce steak and you could probably turn that into a whole meal for a family of 6 people. And I'll show you how to do that. When we're looking at serving sizes, so when we're looking at reducing the amount of animal protein, we can start with just watching our serving size. So instead of a 6 ounce burger, we go down to a 5 ounce and then a 4 ounce and then a 3 ounce. And then that looks like a normal serving size for us. We've just gotten used to it. It's a habit. We expect to see something as big as our head when we order a hamburger, right? So 3 ounces of meat or poultry is the size of a deck of cards. So that if you keep that vision in your head, a deck of cards, knowing that that is one serving of meat and poultry, that's a healthy serving of it. With fish, we're looking at the size of a checkbook because it comes in before it's cooked, a 4 ounce serving. So it's a little bigger than a deck of cards. So it's more like a checkbook size. So 4 ounces of fish, 1 egg or 2 egg whites is considered a serving. No 6 egg omelets, people. And then when it comes to cheese, 1.5 ounces per serving. And by decreasing that amount, just one ounce at a time, you can make a healthy step without really having it affect you're not going to feel deprived, right? It won't feel like a chore. It'll feel like, oh, it's a little different, but I got this. So having smaller portions of meat, but then make the vegetable be the star of the show, right? So instead of that plate you saw that was all steak and nothing but the steak, what if you had smaller pieces of steak, but you had quinoa and you had um, lentils or a vegetable on that plate, that it becomes part of the show and not the star of the show. Using bold flavors can make smaller servings feel more satisfying because you are giving your palate what it likes, something really tasty. And again, like I said, pairing it with plant proteins, adding texture and variety. So we're looking at flavor, improving the flavor by roasting or grilling or layering flavors can make a meal feel more complete. So instead of an 8 ounce steak with potatoes, have a 3 ounce steak with roasted vegetables and a lentil salad. So that's what we mean by reducing, reduce the amount of meat. That's one technique. Now let's look at some people want to actually replace the meat with vegetable sources of protein. Now, the USDA says, and we just saw this several slides back, that many Americans get the right amount of protein needed from meat, poultry, and eggs, but they do not meet the requirements for seafood or nuts, seeds, and soy products. So let's focus on those now. When we look at what are top substitutions for a meat, mushrooms get they come to the top of the list, right? You can grill a portobello mushroom and have that be your burger, or adding, and I'm going to do this and actually put it on Facebook this week because we don't have enough time. I thought I would be able to do two burgers, but lamb meat with a bunch of mushrooms pureed. I can take that bit of lamb meat, which is very expensive, add a ton of mushrooms to it, and I can double, if not triple, the amount of burgers that I can make out of that. And then we have your plant-based meat alternatives. That's your tofu, your tempeh, your seitan. And then we have our lentils and beans. I'm going to make a plant-based burger with black beans here and some quinoa. Nuts also can help replace when I do a stir fry. And and I've spoken about this before, I can literally use 2 ounces of meat, whether that's steak or chicken, and create enough for 4 people because I add a lot of vegetables in it and I also add a bunch of cashews. That gives it the crunch and it gives it that umami sense so that they don't leave going, where was my meat? They leave going, wow, this is really delicious. And then we see cauliflower being served as steaks. I actually went somewhere this weekend and they served a half a head of cauliflower with a tahini dressing. And oh my gosh, it was so delicious. So delicious. So these are some substitutions that we can make. And some examples are if you want to make ground instead of a ground beef spaghetti sauce, you could swap it out for lentils. So use the same ingredients, but instead of adding the ground beef, you actually add the lentils. You're going to save money and you're going to add fiber. And when we look at it, 1 pound of ground beef is $6 to $8, whereas a pound of lentils is just $2, and it makes twice the amount of food. So you'll see that there's a big cost savings. So chickpeas instead of chicken in a curry or a salad. We can use tofu or tempeh instead of pork for stir fries and sandwiches, black beans on the burgers and the burritos, and we can replace them. Now, sometimes this is a step too far for people and they want to just combine it. And this is considered the protein flip, right? Um, so we're going to look at combining animal and plant proteins. The Culinary Institute of America came up with this concept of protein flip. You will see that there is a link there for menus of change that will describe what this protein flip is. And really what it is it's bringing down the amount of plant-based, of animal-based products that you need by increasing the amount of plant-based. All right, so instead of making a whole beef burger, you can add half of it as mushroom, and that's going to add moisture, umami, and a bunch of nutrients to it. You also can see here that you're going to save $2.50 per meal, and we can also make a taco. I do this all the time. So when I get a pound of ground, fill in the blank. It's usually turkey or it could be chicken, but it could also be beef if that's where you want to go. And I'll add 1 to 2 cans of black beans to it. I've now doubled or tripled the amount of taco filling that I have for pennies. And we have the exact same flavor. It's the same taco seasoning. Everything's the same, but I'm adding more legumes to be able to add more health to my dish, decrease the amount of price, and increasing the amount of fiber. These are just many ways you could use a protein flip. Croquettes, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but I grew up with a mom who she knew how to do croquettes. So basically, when you have just a little bit of something left over, whether that's salmon or a little bit of steak left over, or pot roast or pork, you can grind that up and you don't need much of it. You just need like a handful of it. And then you make a mashed potato. So I usually do sweet potato with potato and make a sweet potato mash with garlic, with roasted garlic in it. Yummy, yum. You mix that together and you let it cool in the fridge. and then you pull it out and you can actually make patties out of that. So that is what a croquette, that's one way. Soups and stews is a really great place to add a whole bunch of legumes, and you don't need a lot of meat, and people do not miss it. Because what you're focusing on as a food coach, as somebody who cooks healthfully, is you're focusing on the flavor. The flavor is your number one tool to eat a healthful diet and to want to continue to eat a healthful diet. And then we have the tacos that I talked about before. You combine the meat and the beans. We have the nuts and the tofu and the veggies and the stir fry. A stir fry should be at least three quarters vegetables. That's whatever it is you want in there, pea pods, broccoli, carrots, onions, mushrooms, whatever it is that you want to add to it. It should be three quarters that, and then one quarter come from a protein source. And then we have some blended burgers, adding mushrooms and beans to a blended meat product. And then with our sandwiches, well, I'm going to show you how to make one in a little bit because we had someone ask that question. Instead of taking a meat sandwich to work, what can I take? And I'm going to give you some examples of that. So to summarize, when we look at something called the Eat Lancet report, and that is a report that was created by an international group of scientists that answer this question: how much animal product do we as a world citizen need to consume for our health, and how much do we need for our planetary health? And so what you see here is my attempt at taking the amount of protein that they recommended and putting it into a weekly amount for the amount of poultry, fish, and vegetable options should be about 40% of your meals throughout the week, and saving your meat 5% of the meals that you eat per week. That is what a Mediterranean diet looks like right there. And that decrease your amount of meat to another 5%, so that when you're looking at meat, that adds up to 10%. And then using the protein flip for the other 50% of your meals. And you can see what I did here for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For Monday, we're starting with eggs. With lunch, we'll have some cheese. And I'm just focusing on the protein source here. There's a lot else that goes with it. And for dinner, turkey burger blend. Another day, yogurt, salad with legumes, maybe some fish, nut butter sandwich, maybe with some hemp seeds and bananas sliced on top with a little bit of honey. Yummos. A rice bowl with some salmon, and then a vegetarian meal. So you'll see that you still get a robust variety of food. This does not look like something that is that would make someone feel deprived, as long as you just take it easy and do one step at a time. And to summarize, it's better for the earth, it's more affordable, and it's a healthier choice. As with everything in the Food Coach Academy, a gradual reduction is what we do. We do this modular approach, so reducing portion sizing, aiming for maybe one plant-based meal swap, plant-based swap. So Meatless Mondays is an example of that. You can go to their website. They have some great recipes there. Combining your meat and plant for better value, and just experimenting with new plant-based recipes. So that is what protein's all about. I'm just going to finish up this with letting you know that on February 11th, so in less than a week, the second textbook, Maximizing Flavor, is coming out. And that is really about how to use salt, sugar and salt. What else is in there? Herbs and spices to create flavorful dishes that don't seem like you're missing anything. And again, so you can sign up for the newsletter and all of that on my website. So what I want to switch to now is I want to switch to making a plant-based burger. And I got this recipe from, let me just end this right now and get back on. Yeah. All right. So hopefully you can see me now. So what I want to do now is make a plant-based burger. It's in the menus of change. You have that link. It's called a quinoa black bean burger. And I went for a full one because I didn't have time to make we wouldn't have enough time to make the lamb mushroom one, but I am going to make that. So follow me to figure out how to do that and to see how tasty that becomes. All right. So the quinoa black bean burger. So let's now switch over to my cutting board where you'll see there's a host of ingredients here. And what this recipe calls for is 3 cups of black beans that is in my food processor because they want that to be pureed. I actually used two, 3 cups. Yes, 3 cups. This is definitely 3 cups. I used 2 cans, 3 cups of black beans. So they want me to puree it. So let's just do that real quick. And this is going to become the binder for to keep everything together. Let's keep going here. It's going to come out to be a paste. It's not going to smell that great, not going to be honest with you, but it's going to be tasty because we're going to put a lot of spices in. Oh my goodness, beans. All right, one more time through this. And when I'm looking at making burgers, let's be real, what we put on the burger is either going to make or break the deliciousness of our burgers. You're going to see all the stuff I have here. All right, that's going to be good enough for me. So let's put the pureed black beans, which are super heavy, and they're nutrient dense, right? They're full of nutrients. When you take your legumes out of the can, just make sure that you wash them because the gas that comes off of that is either going to come off of it, go down the sink, or go into your belly, and no one's going to want to be around you for a little bit. All right, so we've got our black beans in here. And to this, they want us to add half a cup of quinoa, which I have here. Let's do half a cup of quinoa. It have to be 100%. Again, I'm not baking, so it doesn't have to be 100%. We have that. Now they want 2 tablespoons of peppers. So I have red and orange, but I'm just going to do 2 tablespoons of the red pepper. And now comes the fun part with cayenne pepper, chili pepper, and they asked for cumin. I didn't have cumin, but I do have curry powder that has cumin in it. So again, when you're cooking, you can make substitutions. You get to do what you would like to do. So you might say, like I'm saying, you know what? There's no way on God's green earth I'm putting 1 teaspoon of cayenne in here because I won't be able to eat it because I am a puppy when it comes to spice. So I'm going to put a half a teaspoon of cayenne. A half a teaspoon of cayenne, yep. So that I'll be able to enjoy this food. So I'm going to put it all in one glass bowl. So I know what I'm doing here. All right. So we've got our cayenne done, and it is chili powder, a teaspoon of chili powder. So you see, I mean, that even has spice in it too. So a teaspoon of chili powder. And then when it comes to the cumin, they wanted a tablespoon of cumin. But again, I don't have cumin, so I'm going to actually cut that in half and do 1.5 teaspoons of curry. That should be plenty. I'm actually just going to do 2 large ones. All right. So there we go. That is our spice. That's what's going to give it an incredible kick in the pants. All right, I'm swirling this around. Swirling. Get out of. Now, I noticed they didn't say anything about salt and pepper. And they also didn't say anything about cooking the burger. So sometimes recipe doesn't have everything in it. So I'm going to put a dash of salt, dash of pepper, because I know that there's nothing else in here that is salty. So I'm trying to decide whether I want to do this with my hands or my spoon. I'll do my spoon. That way. All right, let's sprinkle this on. So that's how easy it was. What did that take? Like 5 minutes? I mean, if you made your legumes from scratch, which takes a long time, but if you have the time, it is so much cheaper to get the hard legumes and then soak them and cook them yourself and maybe batch cook them. So this is smelling really, really delicious. And the recipe kind of ends there with, put this all together, make 4 patties. I think this can make more than 4 patties, but we'll see. And all right, let's just see here. Oh, very nice. But I'm going to make smaller patties. Now, again, that has to be cooked. I can't imagine they don't want that cooked. And I'm just going to put 3 into a heated cast iron pan with a little bit of oil while we make something else. So let's see, how many more can this make? Yeah, I think it's going to make 6 of them. Even 7. But again, I think they were going with your typical burger sizes. And you can make these ahead of time and then just heat them up. So you don't have to actually go through this. Keep them in the fridge, wrap them, keep them in a container, an airtight container, and you can just pull it out for lunchtime. Let me just wash my hands real quick so you can hear some water running. You can zap it in a microwave just to heat it up a little bit, and then add it onto a roll with all the fixings. All right, I'm just walking over here and I'm adding burgers to my cast iron pan, and they're sizzling. And I will go back to that in a little bit. So, someone asked me, what can I have as a sandwich that doesn't require meat? A whole bunch of things. So, for your spread, you could try some guacamole. This is a chunky, spicy one from Trader Joe's. Hold on, people. I'm going to sneeze because the pepper. Oh, it's coming. Right, didn't happen. So, this, or I got some za'atar hummus, and that is absolutely what I'm using. I love za'atar hummus. And I'm going to, you'll see, I added a whole bunch here. So that's going to be my base. Oh, I wish we had smell-o-vision again. It is smelling so good in here. And with this, I want to add, what do I want to add? I want to add some strips of cucumber. I don't mind the seeds. Some people don't like the seeds, so I'm going to put that down here. And then I really like olives. My favorite hors d'oeuvre is legumes with some olives on just a cracker. You don't need a lot of them. Calamari olives we have here. What else can I put on there? I think I'm going to do some red pepper. Put some red pepper on there. So if I cut this in half like this, I'm able to just pull out the seed, put that in my compost, and slice some of these down here. You can build your own wrap or sandwich based on what vegetables you have, what spreads you have. It could be baba ganoush. It could be, it could even be nut butter, and then you wrap it with a banana and maybe a couple of chocolate chips. So I'm just pushing this in there, creating this, gonna wrap it in saran wrap, and then you can see a beautiful lunch. Now, these wraps that I have are made from quinoa because if you've been following me, you know I am gluten free. So they don't wrap as well as your wheat ones, but as long as you have it in saran wrap, that would be great. It'll keep its shape. All right, I'm walking over to flip my burger. Oh, nice, and you'll see there's a nice brownness to it. So while that is finishing cooking, let us get our rolls. As I said, I'm going to make 3. These are on wheat rolls, and then I have mine on the gluten-free roll. Now, what I want on mine is, what is my base going to be? So who knows this? What goes into a Big Mac? 3 old beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, soda, sesame seed bun. Well, this is going to be my special sauce. Roasted aioli. I don't need a lot of it. This is a source of fat. Don't need much. I am going to spread that on my roll. That's going to be one of the things that I do. Now, my son, who does not like that, he loves this Trader Joe's sauce. Yes, it has some sugar in it, but it's not about being perfect, right? So he likes this magnificent sauce, a tangy sauce of secret proportions, whatever that means. So I'm going to put a little bit of that there for him. And now I am going to you see that? See how nice and crispy and crunchy the top is? Wow. What am I going to add to this? I'm not done yet. I'm nowhere near being done with this. Now, I have some smoked Gouda. Again, that won't go on mine because I'm dairy free, but no worries. I could have put goat cheese on it. And the Gouda having a hard time getting out of the pack, so I'll just do cheese on one of them. What I want to put on mine is pickled red onions. So you see here, I am just developing the flavor as I go along and adding more and more of it. These pickled onions are incredible. We have a local place here in Vermont that makes them, and even my son loves them. We've got some here, we've got some there. Wonderful. What else do I want on mine? So I could also have put some pepperoncini on there, which I might do for my son because he likes a little more spice. That's going to give it a little kick. And I'm going to add some arugula to mine. So as you can see, this is a very delicious looking bean and quinoa burger that I think most people would like to sit down and eat. So try it out. Let me know how it works. You have the link to it. I want to know what you put on your burger because I just think each one of us has such a different palate. And I'd love to see what different palates do and cultures do in terms of turning in a quinoa black bean burger into something that is just incredibly scrumptious. So now I am going to turn over to questions because I know you have a bunch of them. And we're going to start with Michelle. All right. Michelle, I've been told that I should get more protein in my diet as I age because I'm a senior. Could you tell me how much I should be getting and where I should get it on a whole food plant-based diet? So Michelle, so it's going to be 1 gram per kilogram. So you're going to have around 63 grams per day. What I tell seniors all the time, I have a Build Healthy Seniors program, is that every time you sit down to eat, there should be a protein source there. So breakfast, lunch, and snacks. So if you're going to have maybe some carrot sticks, make sure there's some hummus there with it. Or if you're going to have crackers, a piece of cheese with it for your snack. That way, you will make sure that you get enough protein throughout the day. You don't have to be counting protein, but just making sure every time you sit down to eat, there's some protein there. That'll also help decrease a spike in blood sugar levels that can be an issue with people as they age. So, making sure that your breakfast, lunch, and dinner all have sources of protein is a really great way. You can snack on nuts. I know my aunt, when she was aging, she got what was considered reactive hypoglycemia, and really, what all that meant was that by 2 in the afternoon or 11 o'clock in the morning, which was like 3 hours after she ate a meal, she would just crash. She'd feel like she has to fall asleep, and that was her blood sugar level decreasing. So I told her just to have some almonds in her pocket, and she did that, and she was totally fine. So, Michelle, I hope that helps. I've heard that Afki, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I know you've asked two questions, but you're talking about amino acids that plant proteins don't always have some of the amino acids. You're talking about those complete proteins, right, with the essential amino acids in them. How do I make sure I get those amino acids? And you also ask about, do you need to measure and calculate the protein intake when on a vegan diet? So you do not need to, as long as you're eating enough calories to support your age, gender, weight, you will be getting enough protein in your diet. You don't have to be counting protein grams. You don't need an app to help you do that. And what was considered a myth that I talked about in the very beginning, where there are these complementary proteins. So, for instance, um, grains and legumes, one's missing methionine or is low in methionine, which is one amino acid, the other is missing lysine. What we used to think, folks, like 30 years ago, a long time ago, was that you had to eat the complementary proteins together in one meal. That has been debunked for over 30 years, but people still think it's a thing. So think of your body is having a pool of amino acids that are just floating around in it, waiting for your body to give a signal, oh, make this hormone or help with build this muscle or create this neurotransmitter, whatever it is. You have all your amino acids, the 20 amino acids floating around in there. And your body will choose from that pool every day. But that pool is very robust. It's not like it runs out quickly. So you don't have to eat a complementary protein at the same meal. You could eat it a day later or 2 days later, right? So just making sure that you get a complement of types of protein, like your grains and your legumes and your vegetables. You'll make sure that you have enough of these complementary amino acids. They don't have to be eaten at the same time. You don't have to worry about it. We have athletes that are vegan and putting on a lot of muscle mass, and so you don't need to worry about that, unless, of course, you want to be a competitive athlete, and then you should work with a dietitian. Okay, Lynn, you want me to share some suggestions for protein meal bars that are easily transported while hiking or traveling. I am not a fan of these bars because most of them have a lot of ultra processed ingredients in them. I do, however, when I am going hiking or traveling, will get an RX bar. So the RX bar is made with egg whites and nuts. So there's like 3 or 4 ingredients in each. You don't have extra stuff that's not needed in there, and they're high in protein. So the RX bars, meal bars, are the ones that I like personally, and are the only ones I would recommend. What does Misha have to say? Oh, Misha, I hope you liked my idea about lunch meat sandwiches, but you don't always have to resort to sandwiches. You could just put your leftovers in a container. Get one of these glass containers from IKEA. Build a bowl. So throw in some grains from last night with some vegetables and a little bit of protein in there and bring it to work. It doesn't have to be sandwiches. You don't even need to heat it. So you can do grain bowls, salad bowls, and you can do the roll ups that I showed you. Yep, yep. Now we're going to Chris. Chris, we have you're asking about protein powders. Um, and I'm assuming from your question or intuiting that you don't think we can absorb the protein from the powders and the supplements. So, like with any other food and or supplement, we don't absorb 100% of it. Um, what I do know is that whey protein is absorbed faster than other proteins, that each of our bodies has only a maximum amount of protein it can absorb. Um, and then it just stops absorbing it. You do absorb the protein from protein powders. Yes, they are expensive. Do you need them? That's an individual choice. I know. So, for instance, my college age child comes home, he's super starving. He's already had 3 meals and a bunch of snacks. So he'll throw together a protein drink and then he's fine for the night. So, I don't say go to that first, second, or third, but if it's something that allows you to get the protein in that you need, and you're not thinking you need a ton of protein because you really don't, and you're getting enough usually from your diet, then yes, protein powders. All right. Deonia, you asked about complete protein and how to achieve that with plant-based meals. Again, having a variety of substances at your meals. So that is your grains, your legumes, and your nuts, and making sure that there's that. It doesn't have to be the same meal. It could be within the same day or within the same 2 days. As long everything in the diet is about variety. So making sure you get a variety of color. I said this with the fruit, a variety of fruit, a variety of vegetables. With protein, it's a variety of protein as well. Making sure that you just have a variety, you're not just doing one one source of protein every day. Your body will use that, and that will be enough. Is there an easy way to find out if I'm getting enough of essential amino acids every day? And Diane, in terms of I'm sure there is a food processor, probably that's one of the ones you pay for. Food processor, that would be a dietetic question, a dietitian question in terms of the essential amino acids. Again, making sure you get a variety. And if you are having issues that are related to protein deficiency, really speaking to your clinician about that. Beth. You were recently diagnosed with alpha gal syndrome. I have no idea what that is. And working around new dietary restrictions is challenging in planning and keeping myself away from protein triggers. So that's not knowing what that is, but reading into what you say that you have dietary restrictions and how can you plan yourself away from protein triggers? Well, first of all, a mammalian meat allergy. Oh, okay. Thank you, Patrick, for telling me what that is. Mammalian meat allergy. You have so I would just do more fish and more plant-based um, protein in your diet. There is so much to choose from just with that. Just within the plant world, there's a lot to choose from. So I would sit down and I would create a meal plan. I actually have one. If you go to my contact page and say, "Can you send me your weekly protein guide?" I can actually send that to anybody who wants it. And you just fill in the boxes yourself. You can just put down what protein sources can you have. And I get that if you are a big meat eater to begin with or a medium meat eater, that this is going to sound really big to you. But again, taking it off in bite-sized pieces, just cutting out what you need to cut out and replacing it with delicious food will make you feel like you can keep going. So good luck with that, Beth. Is there a nutritional downside to egg whites? A nutritional downside? No. I'm not really sure what you're referring to, Linda. You've been plant-based for many years and you're considering egg whites again. Um, that is a great protein source. So again, if you're not allergic to egg whites and it's within your paradigm, and that's what you want to do, then I don't know your health history, but I can't, unless you're allergic to eggs, I wouldn't see why not. Does the processing of soy into soy milk change the amino acid profile? No, I do not believe it does. Processing of soy, no, because no, it does not. Marcia, do you use actual body weight or ideal to compute protein needs? Your actual body weight. Great question, Marcia. What the weight you are now? Keisha, yes, thank you for this. You're welcome, Misha and Keisha. Misha and Keisha, you guys rhyme. Um, so yeah, soy is a complete protein. So I don't see why processing it, unless the processing took out so heat's not going to take it out. Um, I will get back to you, Linda, Diane, if it's different than that, but I can't see why it would be. All right. Well, another great session. 3 minutes to closing, and I wish you a wonderful February full of wonderful meals and treats and health and happiness. Thank you.